Welcome to Alpha Wolf Trading. Did you know that there's over 12,000 stocks or companies that trade on the OTC? Between the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, you have over 7,000 companies. But us as retail investors, we wouldn't know that unless we were researching. Because why? Wall Street focuses on the elite, the big companies. And where the retail investor has their advantage is in small and micro-cap stocks. Why? Because you have the opportunity to speak directly with leadership. That is what this is all about here at Alpha Wolf Trading. We're trying to find the hidden gems, and we interview the executive teams of companies that we think meet the parameters to be those hidden gems. I also want to make sure you understand that this is not a paid-for promotion. I collect no compensation for the interviews I do here. These companies that I interview have been identified as potential opportunities for me and the members of Alpha Wolf Trading to receive a higher than average return on our investment. These companies I have identified either because of a technical setup on a chart, a fundamental change within the organization, management team, new products, all kinds of different things that actually lead me here. But what do I think is the most important? Leadership. And that is why I do these interviews. I want to understand what drives the person that is leading the charge. I want to feel their passion. I want to understand their vision and the strategy that they're going to use to achieve success. That is what these interviews are for. I want to understand the share structure and the cap table, the size of the TAM, the total addressable market. This is the opportunity to learn all of those things. So sit back and enjoy. And if you learn anything from today's interview, do us a favor. Subscribe to the Alpha Wolf Trading YouTube channel. This is a reminder that I am not a financial advisor. This is not investment advice. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. If you're going to invest in any security, I highly recommend that you seek out a financial advisor or do your own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with a follow-up interview to one of my favorite stories, Department of Defense play. New product coming into the company. Sam Rubin, been the CEO, came into a real, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, shitstorm when he came in, and had to deal with some pretty tough things. Turned around right at the time COVID came about, so it was good timing all the way around for Sam. Hey, Sam, Lightpath is the company. LPTH is the symbol on the NASDAQ. Sam, how are you?
I'm good. Good to be back and good to speak to you again, Tim.
All right, so it's you've had some recent news announcements. I saw that you got the cameras that you have started assembling or started producing now have long ranges and not just short range. Is that
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a pretty exciting one. So, one thing that we've learned from the war in Ukraine is that obviously everyone knows, it's common knowledge, that cheap suicide drones are a big issue. So, you can get these drones that they would launch from 500 miles away, travel slowly and steadily over, and crash into a location. Well, you want to shoot them down, obviously, before they come. And there are two major issues there. Sorry. One is you cannot use a radar. The moment you turn on a radar, the enemy, in the case of the Ukrainians, the Russians, have a very sophisticated radar detection system. And the moment they see a signal of a radar, they will launch a missile. And within 90 seconds after you turned on your radar, you're gone. So basically, that's out of the question. You cannot use radars in a battlefield like Ukraine to detect the incoming drones. Second thing is, the biggest way or the most common way to do it until now in terms of taking down such drones is firing a missile. A missile that would have a heat-seeking head or would have a radar head itself or different ways like that. But then there's the economics to that. You fire a $80,000 missile on a drones that cost $500, you might win the battle but lose the war by going bankrupt. So, technology is needed that can passively detect such drones coming in and that can be mounted on, machine guns, on anti-aircraft cannons and so on to fire down. A shell from a anti-aircraft cannon is orders of magnitude cheaper than a missile. And this is where thermal imaging comes into play. And so you want a thermal camera that can detect as much signal as possible, right? I mean, you basically have noise around you, the heat of the air, of clouds, of the sun, and you have the signals that you want to detect. So it's a classic signal to noise ratio. And so the two ways to do it is one, using a very expensive cooled camera that would have a very low noise itself and therefore can detect from a very bigger difference. So those cryogenically cooled cameras would cost $100,000 or so. So if you need a few of them, fine. If you need to mount 1,000 of them on every anti-aircraft cannon in the area or something like that, that's pretty difficult economically. The other way is to use the uncooled cameras, which have a not so good of a sensitivity, but their cost can be $1,000, $5,000 or so. They're good for shorter range. What we did is took our Mantis uncooled camera, which is very, very unique in a sense that it can image across a much wider spectrum than cameras usually do. And we built for it some long-range optics, and with it have shown that because the Mantis camera actually picks up a signal that is across the entire infrared band and not only the long-wave band or not only the mid-wave band, it picks up a much stronger signal. And our press release shows a jet being a photo of a jet being taken from miles and miles away. And you see in a regular uncooled camera, you can sort of see the body of the jet, but it looks very similar to the clouds. So if the jet would pass next to a cloud, you'd lose tracking of it.
Right.
And in our camera, because it can capture such wide of a signal, you see that actually the engines, which are the hottest part of the jet, are glowing really big time. And so we've shown that with our cameras, that could be $5,000 to $10,000, depending on configuration, we can actually detect incoming aircrafts with a much higher sensitivity than uncooled cameras, and with similar performance to cooled cameras, which cost $100,000. And so we're really bringing in now hopefully directly into the battlefield in Ukraine, some technologies that can really help change the games there in terms of passively detecting and protecting yourself.
Let me ask you a question on so with these cameras that you're talking about now, the jets, I understand, you got the engines that are hot, and that's what you're detecting, right? So when it comes to drones, though, is that even something that you can detect? I mean,
that's a great question. So you need to look at different classification of drones. The short-range drones, which is like what we buy at Walmart and so on, or the DJI drones and so on, are electrical. And obviously their engine doesn't heat up as much, absolutely right. But those drones can't fly 500 miles. They can't even fly 50 miles, or 10 miles is a stretch, right? Those are drones that are used for very, very short range. I mean, for example, in Ukraine, back to that, a very interesting conversation I had with someone there was about how they take a very cheap drone, connect on it a RPG shell, and just crash the drone with the RPG on it, straight into the tanks they want to take off, right? That
Right.
drone has a 10-minute flight time. That's it. It's like they need to be really, really near to it, right? When you're talking about Russia firing 300 Shahid drones at Ukraine, you're talking about them flying them from 500 miles away. To fly from such a distance, that's an internal combustion engine. Some of them even have a jet engine. Just yesterday was an article about Iran developing for Russia a version of the Shahid suicide drone with a jet engine on it that would be able to fly at 600 miles per hour. So you're talking about very long distances, right? And they're carrying a very heavy weight. I mean, they're carrying, hundreds of pounds of explosives or tens of pounds, right? You can't do that with an electric battery. That's a powerful combustion engine that emits a lot of heat, just like a jet engine does, and that is, much easier detectable with thermal imaging than the sort of electric ones are.
So that when did you announce the longer range on those cameras?
Last week, I think, on
Last week.
Wednesday or Thursday, yeah.
Okay. And do you have interest already in the cameras? Have you been?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've already, oftentimes by the time we come to announce on something, we have some key customers behind it already,
Okay.
right? I mean, the last thing you want is to have too much of the if you build it, they will come. You want to minimize your risks when you're doing
Right.
product development, right? So it would be very rare for us to put in a significant effort in an R&D project without some customer behind it. It doesn't have to be that the customer finances it or pays for the development, but we need to know someone wants it, because then we design also the right thing, right? Otherwise, we're guessing what people want, and that's also pretty bad.
All right. Okay. All right, Tim. So the cameras, you're making progress there. Let's talk about the BD6 for a minute. I know you had an earnings call, and unfortunately I didn't get to sit in on that. So
Yeah.
where are you at with the BD6?
Yeah, so BD6, so let's say more generally speaking, so yeah, we're black diamond glass. Synthetic glass or glass we manufacture, not a crystal, and we manufacture it by mixing different materials together, melting it, and so on, just like a silica glass. And those materials provide an alternative to using germanium. And not only an alternative, they actually exceed the performance of germanium in many aspects. And so the issue has been always that we are very dependent on other countries for the germanium, specifically China. It used
Yep.
to be China and Russia. So China and Russia together supplied 95% of the germanium in the world. 3 years ago, starting the war, Russia sanctions, no one buys from Russia. So it sort of switched into being China. On July 4th, and I guess they chose that date specifically of July 4th, China announced that they are going to start limiting export of germanium from China, right? As a retaliation to some of the export controls against it. Germanium is used in semiconductors. About a quarter of germanium gets used in semiconductors, in optics, in solar cells, and in fiber optics. Those are sort of the main areas where germanium gets used. Our material solves the problem for the 25% of the germanium that is being consumed into optics. We're not solving the problem for semiconductor, we're not solving the problem for solar cells, we're very specific there. And that's fine, because DoD even said, if you can even solve a quarter of the problem for us, it's already a quarter more than we have right now. So and that's why they're financing this, right? I mean, we received about close to $3 million in financing from different funding vehicles of the DoD and related. And so our materials that we make in Orlando can replace germanium and can actually improve performance of systems. We've been seeing this coming, and 2 years ago licensed from Naval Research Laboratory an entire portfolio of IP of materials that they developed there over the years. And we also started applying for and getting funding from DoD, from European Space Agency, from many different areas for this, to qualify the materials to replace germanium. Come July 4th, everyone suddenly woke up and we're there, it's sort of the best place possible. And so since July 4th, we've been working very closely and diligently with our customers to help them, or even sometimes do for them, a redesign of their system to use our materials instead of germanium. 90% of the time, it's not a one-to-one replacement. You can't just take out the germanium lens, put in a BD6 or a black diamond lens, and that's it. It's a slightly different, so you have to redesign the optical system. We have customers that are testing now the redesigns. We have customers that have already switched over to using only black diamond or only non-germanium materials. And we have customers that are not only saying that they are testing the redesigns, they also publicly said, going forward, every new product is going to be only with Lightpath black diamond glass, period. And so we're really at a good spot there. We're making great progress. Of course, me being the impatient person that I am, I want everything to be faster, and it's never fast enough. But I give my team a considerable credit on this. This is, we're juggling in the last 4 months or so, we're juggling redesigning systems for a number of customers, and all of them in parallel, and every customer wants his first.
Of course.
And so, absolutely. So we feel that our top 2 customers alone, top 2 germanium customers alone, might bring in as much as $10 million a year of black diamond optics revenue for us. Now, one of those customers that uses only germanium until now, we have proactively cut down the amount of work we do for them 4 or 5 months ago. And we talked about it publicly, and we said, we're going to have a couple of low quarters because we are intentionally not taking on germanium work, very intentionally. And we even canceled open orders of that customer for 2 reasons. One is we wanted to reduce our risk and exposure to germanium. No one knew back then, and still I think there's a lot of uncertainty on how this will play out with China. Are we going to be able to get germanium at all? Is it just going to, require licenses and just going to be a delay? Or, is it going to be much worse? So wanted to reduce our exposure. Secondly, we wanted to also free up our capacity to be used to now manufacture the new designs for customers. So the last thing we want is to be produced using half of our manufacturing capacity to make optics from germanium, and customers want to place orders for optics made of black diamond, which are much more profitable for us, and we can't do it because we took too much germanium work. And so we did that, and the result is what we said it would be. The last quarter was 7.3 million, 7.4 million. It was lower than before. The current quarter we're in is also going to be lower, but after that, we're going to bounce back, and I'm sure we're going to have much more profitable orders and much more profitable business in the infrared components than we had in the past.
Okay. So just to be clear on the BD6, the BD6 is for thermal imaging, right?
Yep, exactly.
And the germanium thing, I think, has been, that's one of the things that I've really felt as though could be. How big is the TAM on that, Sam?
It depends who you ask, right? But I think I saw some numbers that talked about China exporting around $5 billion of germanium a month. And that was a year ago. And that is down to about 700 million in currently. So, considerable differences. But of course, it really depends who you ask. You go and you look at the US Geological Survey data that they collect, and that number is much lower. their
Right.
number is, $200 million a month, maybe. So tough to tell. I know that we alone were purchasing about 1.5 tons of germanium a year. So, that already gives you some sense.
And just for just as follow up, but the you make that the BD6 right there in Florida, right?
We do, yeah.
And are you constrained by capacity to produce X amount?
Well,
Or,
so a year ago, we did a really nice raise and had a extremely good reaction to it. And actually, it brought in a bit more money than we were planning to get. And that money was used for mainly for expansion of the space and basic infrastructure in Orlando. And so while we haven't added glass capacity yet, we've added space and all the auxiliary infrastructure around it needed. And so we can now scale up. We're currently, we have the capacity to produce 10 tons a year of glass. It sounds a lot, but it's not even a tenth of what is needed, probably.
right.
But we have the space now, and we have the basic infrastructure for it. And I'm pretty sure that the Department of Defense is going to continue supporting us in different ways for this. So while the initial fundings that we received have been mainly from areas that focus on qualification of new materials, like defense logistics agencies, strategic materials, or from space agencies and things like that, the next bunch of fundings that I assume would probably come will be specifically for increasing manufacturing capacity in the US. And DoD is very good at that, and they understand exactly where they need to put their money now. I mean, you can even see it in the Army last week canceling a $2 billion project for a new helicopter, which they understood and they said, okay, things have changed. We started this project before everyone realized that drones are the future and unmanned. And you know what? We're not going to need a small helicopter for collecting intelligence. We're going to fly drones there. So the Army is adapting and is rerouting, I think, a lot of its efforts to the right places.
Okay. Any other industries that are looking interesting for you guys other than Defense Department?
Yeah, well, automotive is a big one for us. And, we've been already working pretty closely for the last few years with a number of tier one, tier two customers in the automotive to add thermal imaging as a ADAS, as a driver assist technology. And in May, the Department of Transportation announced that they're intending of setting a rules that's going to mandate having emergency braking system in all vehicles, and is also going to require a significant improvement of the performance of those systems at nighttime. They basically show data showing that the current systems using radar technology, using visible cameras, do not work well at night. And so the systems, the technology we're bringing in of thermal imaging is a really great additional technology for emergency braking system. And so we're already qualified into one of the largest customers. We're working with a couple of other very large car companies. And I think everyone is a bit waiting to see what will be the outcome of the DOT announcement to decide when to roll out everything.
Okay.
But the automotive part for us, we're looking at somewhere around $20 to $50 units of what we ship per vehicle. Now, we're not even talking about all the vehicles, 70 million or so a year. We're talking about, each one of our automotive customers is talking about a number of vehicles that they would put this into. And those vehicles roughly are about 1 million vehicles a year. So we're looking at 20 to 50 million a year from each one of our automotive customers.
Okay.
So very significant. I mean, today we're at 35, 40 million.
So the one
Excuse my
thing
coughing.
was
Yeah.
that the car manufacturers, it's just a very long sales cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. I mean, I know that they're supposedly trying to trim that down, but it's just a very long sales cycle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so that's why we're really at a good spot, right? With one of the largest companies out of Detroit. We started working right after I joined, so 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And this is 3 years is roughly what it took to get to the point of being qualified. We were supposed to be already now shipping about 20,000 units of this to that car company. Now, the market changed. Everyone was looking at rolling those out on their EV platforms because that was the flavor of the month. Everyone wanted EV, right? And so now that EV's cooled down and some of those companies are even stepping away from EV, they need to figure out their roadmap, I'd say, again, and decide where they're going to roll it. Our technology isn't specific to EV. It can work in internal combustion engine vehicles as well. It's just where they choose to roll it out.
right. Okay. So I'm gonna ask the next question, and we actually talked about it a little bit before we hop down here, but as far as cash goes, you are set on cash. You don't need to do a capital raise.
Yeah. We're operationally, right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Operationally cash flow positive. So, we generate the cash we need for the operation. If any significant opportunity comes up, we might need to raise cash. If a major acquisition that's very lucrative would come up, we'd need to possibly raise cash. If a car company decides to go forward with rolling out the thermal imaging in their cars, but they want our factory to be right next door to their factory in Michigan or in Texas or whenever, right? We will need to set up a new factory because that will raise cash. That's a very well-defined project. It would be, we'd probably need $4 million, and with $4 million, we can set up an entire new factory and be running already and producing from there. But for the most part, we don't need cash right now. We're cash flow positive operationally. We've done our major investments in the facility and expansion using the money we raised a year ago. And so they're pretty good. I think we're actually about to pay off the remaining of our debt and be debt-free.
And that's a good position to be in right now.
It's nice. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Sam. And then you do have the possibilities that some of these thermal imaging contracts actually start to kick in, right? I mean, that's
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we didn't touch on it, but after we acquired Visimid last summer, we got awarded by Lockheed Martin a very significant project. And the project is to design and develop the entire electro-optical head of a new missile system that they have. Now, Lockheed is competing against Raytheon on this. And so it's not a slam dunk. It's not a guaranteed that it will move to production. But, after the initial 2 years or so of development, in which time, during the development phase, by the way, Lockheed Martin is paying us about $7.5 million. So we're not even doing the development on our own dime. After we're done with that, if Lockheed Martin wins a shoot-off against Raytheon, and we're talking about literally a shoot-off, so you shoot their missiles and compare, right? Performance. If that happens, we're looking at an initial order of 10,000 units, okay? Followed by a few tens of thousands of units over the next few years of the program. Our ASP, our price per unit per missile is between $5,000 to $10,000. So we're looking at possibly tens of millions of dollars a year from this. And I get excited by this, not only because it's such a big project and so exciting, but because this is really what we were saying where we want to go. You've been with us and you follow us for a very long time. And you know that when I came on board, I plotted a course saying, let's move away from the components where we're selling individual lenses for tens of dollars and go all the way to become camera systems with visions of ASPs of thousands of dollars, or tens of thousands. So for Lockheed to choose us as their partner to develop the camera system, and with the potential of us selling cameras at $5,000 to $10,000 per missile, is exactly where we wanted to go, right? So I take it as a small also win strategically that we did really position ourselves where we said we would, and we're creating significant value in it, enough that someone like Lockheed Martin, that definitely can do in-house just about anything, enough that someone like them comes to us and has us develop it for them.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Sam, I just look back at your little journey here with
Yeah.
Lightpath, and it's
Yeah.
without question been filled with some challenges, right?
Well, you know, you were talking earlier about what I stepped into and how much I had to clean up. The last one of all of those was the company registration. So 2 months ago, we were about to have our annual shareholder meeting, 3 months ago, sorry. And suddenly someone pointed out a error in some of our documentation. And it turned out that 35 years ago, the company did a split or a reverse split, I can't remember, and did it incorrectly. And so we're talking about 1995, 30 years ago, okay? And we had to go and correct that. Now, it was amazing, unbelievable, kind of, right? You have to correct a mistake 30 years ago. We can't go back to shareholders 30 years ago. So, oh no, you know, we can't find those shareholders. Some of them are gone or whatever. So the only way to do it, and thank God for Delaware, is you go to the Chancery Court in Delaware and they rule allowing you to change your company registration to fix that without shareholder approval, because you can't go and find the shareholders from 30 years ago. So stupid. I mean, honestly, like talk about non-value added, right? But once we found that, we couldn't have an annual shareholder meeting, we couldn't issue stock, we couldn't do anything. And
Wow.
so thank God we solved that. Behind us, it took, after all of that, and all of the lawyers and all of that, it took 5 minutes in court, right? The judge looks at it, says, well, obviously you have to fix it. You can't continue to work as a company without it. It's done.
Jesus.
Yeah. But yeah, we've definitely had our share of surprises.
Yeah, I think one of the lines that I remember from you most is when you said, because you've got your CFO in there and you've got another guy.
Yeah.
You know, we've all dealt with some of these things at one time or another, just
But not
never all of them all
in
at the
one
same.
go. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, you know, after I'm done, and I'm gonna make a lot of money because the stock price will go up to the $6, $7. So once the market understands where we are, and I'll be wealthy, I'll go and write a book about this. Everything I had to do to clean up, and then I'll make even more money on the
You
book.
know what? I am so glad that you just said that, because I know exactly where you're going to write that book. I know exactly who's going to do it for you. I do. And it's funny that you brought that up. What else, Sam? I mean, what do you see as a catalyst for the next
Well,
6?
the defense is huge for us. I mean, when I came on board 3.5 years ago, 8% of our business was defense. It's now 30%, it's going to get to 50% of our business. And, you know, it's happening not only because of the geopolitics that is going on, but also because the path we're going. The more we move into systems, the more attractive we are to the Department of Defense or the primes. You know, no one wants these days, and this is why we've taken this path of going into more solutions. No one wants to design everything.
Right.
You're building today, any system that you build has so many technologies in it that you just can't master all of them, right?
Right.
And so the more complex the system, the more you need subs like us that specialize in certain areas and can do that. And Department of Defense, or the entire defense world in a way, is going through a major shift right now, right? The whole war in Ukraine and everything going on around that, and the war in Israel and other conflicts have all shown us that so much of our thinking of where the money needs to go is changing drastically. I mean, last week the army canceled the contract for development of a new helicopter, right, for short range,
Yeah.
after they spent $2 billion on it. Because they said, you know what, for short range detection or or intelligence, no one's going to fly a helicopter with human in it anymore. Done. It's all going to be drones. And so why spend the money on that when in $2 billion, we can buy a hell of a lot of small drones and fly them around to collect information, right?
Yeah.
So spending of DoD, spending of all defense organizations around the world is changing drastically. And with that change comes a lot of new developments that need to happen. And a lot of them are around thermal imaging. We spoke earlier about sort of detecting drones coming from far away. We learned a lesson in Ukraine. You can't, if you want to detect a suicide drone flying over 500 miles coming to you from Russia, you can't turn on your radar and use the radar to detect the drone. The moment the radar is on, the Russians will lock onto it, and within a minute and a half, you're gone. And
What?
so cameras, infrared imaging is the way to go there, right? And
Yeah.
so we're really at a perfect spot in that sense. We not only transitioned our business to become more of a system and solution, but we also made a bet on the materials, on cameras, on the acquisition of Visimid, on our multispectral cameras that can detect drones like that from a much larger distance than others. All of those are sort of lining up perfectly now.
Right. So, I'm I'm pulling for you because I mean,
Yeah.
you need to have a nice big win, right? Nice to have a
Uh,
nice big win.
yeah.
Because it's been a long road, but you know, you've been transparent. You've from day one, and you've had a clear vision of where you want to go,
Yeah.
and you're executing. Do you had some hiccups? Yeah, I mean, but that's life. I mean, that's
Yeah. Well, if those didn't happen, I wouldn't be needed, to be honest. I mean, a vision is only 20% of the way. So, you can go and hire McKinsey's that'll write a great document for you with an incredible vision, but then you still need 80% of the way, and you need to execute, and you need to fix a company registration, and the guys in China stealing money, and the board of directors and whatnot, right? So,
and the pandemic and some
yeah,
other
exactly.
stuff.
It just keeps coming. But now we're really, I think we can gladly say we're behind the major cleanup part.
All right. So for how many shares outstanding fully diluted are there?
I think we're about 36,
Yeah, 36.
36,
Still
37 billion. Yeah.
anything under 100 million, I consider to be thin, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not a extravagant
Absolutely.
there. And the the units combined the divisions combined that you're looking at. I mean, you talked about automotive, you talked about the cameras. I mean,
A lot of these projects. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of combined.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
What we say, what we like to sort of explain is, we have really three pillars of growth right now: the automotive, the defense world, and the cameras. Under each one of those pillars, there are multiple opportunities that each of them is north of $30 million a year. we're now $35 million a year. So even, two of those opportunities materialize, we're already a considerable growth, right?
Yeah.
And we have close to 10 opportunities like that. The germanium replacement, the Lockheed missiles, different defense customers, the sales of cameras for early fire detection. We didn't even talk about that because we have so much going on, we couldn't even cover everything. But, the key is we're not a one pony show. So we're not a biotech startup betting on one thing. We're not even a startup betting on one thing going. We're a 30-year-old company that has core technologies that enable us to juggle a pipeline with 10 game-changing opportunities for us. And that's where, we need those to keep the pipeline going. We need to feed them, we need to work on them, and we need the patience. Because once one like that happens, I mean, the Lockheed one might be announced even as early as a year and a half from now. And once that's announced, that's instantly could be an $80 million order for us on the spot. That project is so important for the Army, by the way, that they're pushing us to start setting up production now, a year and a half before their decision, because they want to hit the road running. They need those missiles the moment they'll decide on them. So they want us to be all ready to produce, and they will pay for it. We don't even need to pay for it ourselves.
Right. I mean, it's just in my head. If they want that so badly, then no problem. Cut a check.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep.
You're happy to do that. Just cut a check.
Exactly.
All right, Sam. What do you think we should do a follow-up?
I'd say a couple of months from now, we'll probably have already some more progress. I think we're really on the verge of some of the key customers switching over from germanium to our black diamond glass. And, those are, we identified 2 customers that they alone could be $10 million a year of that.
Right.
And so prototypes are being tested literally as we speak. And maybe within 2 months already, we'll have some great news on that.
Okay. I will make sure I ping you in a couple of months.
Absolutely.
From a technical standpoint, I do want to go over the chart a little bit. I mean, you had the pull on the latest numbers, and I'm probably going to get hammered by people that I didn't blast you on the latest numbers. I guess the way I view it is this: that's behind us now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward, right? So
absolutely.
You just said this probably be maybe a soft quarter a little bit here, right?
Yep. One soft quarter behind us, another one we're in right now, slightly softer, but after that, definitely it's back.
So no need to raise capital. That's the biggest issue right now in this current climate.
And debt pretty much paid off. I mean, we're just about days away from possibly paying off our debt. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, these are positive developments, and you've got a lot of irons in the fire. And like I said, you've always been a straight shooter, and that's where we're at right now. But I think you got a lot of potentially really good things happening. So right now, the stock is actually it's bumping up against this 160 level that has acted as resistance in the past. If you can get you and I talked about this actually before we hopped on, but what we'd really like to see is the thing break above $2. That's where you've got some real clear resistances that are right around $2. You can get through that and then just kind of go sideways. That would be very healthy action at $2, right? I mean, take out that resistance area, build up some more power before you have your next leg up, right?
Yep, exactly. I mean, we hit that 160 a few times in the last few weeks, and every time it's literally like a glass ceiling. So we need to get above that, yeah.
All right, Sam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to another CEO follow-up interview with Sam Rubin from Lightpath Technologies. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. If you did, do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share And while you're at it, why not smash that subscribe button? All of those things are extremely important to us here at Alpha Wolf Trading. And Lightpath, ticker symbol LPTH, Sam Rubin, CEO. And until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Trading wishes you the very best of success.